It's Thursday. Welcome to the Little Nessie Happy Hour podcast, where we go live every Thursday at 3 p.m., except when we don't go live every Thursday at 3 p.m. Because Ron and I's schedule fluctuates a little bit, but this week we did it. 3:02. Look at that, Ron. We're right on time.
Beautiful thing.
All right, so Ron and I are we're going to chat for the next hour. We're going to cover, I think, 8 topics, but if we go long on some, then we'll skip some. But the first 3 main topics, where we usually spend about 8 minutes, give or take, are usually revolve around the mortgage, housing, real estate industry, but not always. And then we've got a few rapid fire topics where we do our best to try to stick to 3 minutes. I've got a timer right in front of me that McKenna controls, our producer, but we rarely hit that 3-minute mark. So we'll see how that goes. But Ron, happy Thursday to you. How's your week?
My week is great, David. I'm in Vancouver today. I'm on the harbor here, looking out across the harbor. It's beautiful. It's about 65 degrees. So I'm doing great.
You are the most well-traveled person that I know. Vancouver. Never been to Canada.
Oh, Vancouver is a beautiful place. Clean, beautiful city, nice people. It's awesome.
Yeah. Well, we didn't start it in the first 10 seconds with a cheers, but cheers to you. So happy hour.
Cheers to you. Cheers to you and McKenna.
A coffee cup. What is that, Ron?
I'm drinking out of this, Earth Love and Hippie, recycled compost coffee cup. Never fear though.
You might.
It's leaded, fully loaded.
You might want to get a little bit closer to your computer screen, Ron. Your audio is a little bit low. McKenna, you can actually increase his audio, I think. But anyway, let's get to this week's topics. I do have a From the Gut this week, which is just something that has piqued my interest over the week or recently. And I am talking about the Met Gala that just happened a couple days ago, I believe. Ron, do you know what the Met Gala is?
I did. I've been tracking this, and I think I've seen all the photos.
All right. Then we're going to get into what a crazy photo. Then we're going to get into our 3 main topics. Ron, lead the way.
I love this topic. It'll be a fast topic. It's revolving around the quote, how many cuts does the Fed need to make before 30-year interest rates go above 7%?
I love just the difference in these 2 slides. We go from the image of Kim Kardashian in that crazy outfit to a image of a boardroom and the Fed. So what a transition that's going to be. But then next,
David, both have 2 pointy images in the photo.
Next.
And then next, the AI goat. This is great. Good to see Sue Woodward officially at Housing Wire. She had a fantastic article about AI and the future of the mortgage industry. We'll talk on the key data. It will be some interesting data, kind of a little bit all over the place on that. This is another counterintuitive thing, the employment reality. We're going to talk about how 2 things can be true at the same time and which one to focus on and which one will help your clients.
There we go. And then after From the Gut and those 3 topics, we've got a few random, not random, we've got a few rapid fire topics. So, but without any further ado, let's get into this week's From the Gut. All right. So as I was saying, Met Gala, I think it was 2 days ago. It might've been 3, I don't know. But 2 days ago, after seeing all the images online, on social media, on news channels, whatever, I posted something really simple on social media about it. My post simply said, it was just plain text, orange background. It simply said, the Met Gala is stupid. And honestly, I still kind of think it is. Now, before anyone gets mad, I understand fashion. I understand creativity. I understand artistic expression. And I do get that it's a fundraising event. And to be fair, some of the outfits genuinely look incredible. Some of them are beautifully designed, some are creative, some feel like actual art. But then there's the others. And McKenna, let's see the images. But these outfits where it starts to look less like fashion and more like a weird Halloween party for famous people, because somewhere along the way it stopped feeling like style and started feeling like spectacle. Like the goal wasn't, does this look good? The goal became, will people talk about it? And that's the part that stuck with me, because I don't think the Met Gala is really about fashion and art anymore. I think it's one of the clearest examples of what social media and internet culture has turned into. Attention has become the product, not elegance, not beauty, not even creativity sometimes. It's attention. And once attention becomes the goal, everything starts to get pushed further, more extreme, more bizarre, more performative, because normal doesn't spread anymore. Subtle doesn't trend. And social media has trained us all to understand that, whether we realize it or not. The algorithm rewards spectacle. It rewards shock. It rewards outrage and confusion and ridiculousness. So eventually people stop asking, is this meaningful? And start asking, will this perform? That's a huge shift. And honestly, I think it leaks into way more parts of culture than people realize. You see it online constantly, people exaggerating reactions, people faking authenticity, creating outrage, and doing increasingly absurd things because absurd things get attention. And I think that's why so much content feels disingenuous now, because it's not coming from sincerity anymore. It's coming from performance. And this is where I think social media gets dangerous for a lot of people, especially in business, because people start confusing attention with value. Those aren't the same thing. Something can get millions of views and still have no depth whatsoever. Something can go viral and still build absolutely zero trust. And I see this happening in marketing all the time. People start copying behaviors that don't even fit who they are. They see someone acting outrageous online and getting attention, so they think, well, maybe I need to be louder or more extreme, more controversial, more entertaining. But eventually, if you chase attention long enough, you start drifting away from yourself. If you start chasing attention solely long enough, you start drifting away from yourself. And I think that's the tension under all of this. Because on one hand, I understand why the Met Gala exists. It's engineered perfectly for the internet and for memes and reaction clips and outrage and reposts. It dominates attention for days. So from a pure marketing standpoint, it works, kind of. But I also think there's something a little sad about what it says culturally, because attention used to be the byproduct of doing something meaningful. Now, a lot of times, meaningful things are getting created for attention, and those are very different things. That's why the event makes me uncomfortable, not because people are dressing creatively, but because some of it feels like competing or people are competing to become the content, not necessarily people expressing themselves. And maybe that's why so many people have this visceral reaction to it, because deep down, I think most people can feel the difference between authenticity and performance disguised as authenticity. And look, this isn't me saying people shouldn't have fun or be creative or even wear elaborate outfits. That's not the point. The point is what happens when spectacle becomes the incentive structure. Because once people it because once attention becomes the reward, the pressure is always to become more shocking, more extreme, more ridiculous. And eventually you risk becoming a caricature of yourself. Not because you're expressing who you are, but because the algorithm trained you to perform a version of yourself that gets rewarded. And honestly, I think that's where a lot of people are right now. Not just celebrities, but everyone online, constantly feeling that pressure to perform and to optimize themselves solely for engagement, to become more clickable, more consumable, more viral. And I think somewhere in all of that, we've started confusing attention with actual value. Because at some point, we stopped using attention to highlight meaningful things and started creating meaningless things just to get attention. There you go, Ron. My thoughts on the Met Gala, straight from the gut.
David, that was another great straight from the gut. I will add, it's so interesting that the pursuit to be outrageous to get publicity is now almost being outdone by the people that have taste and class. And I don't mean by its standards. I mean just the people that truly represent themselves are authentic versus the ones that are just trying to get attention and being clowns, in my opinion. And one of the things that surprised me about the Met Gala and about all these, type of events is how quickly the men are catching up to the women and being totally outrageous outfits. I mean, like you just can't even understand what they're doing. You're like, holy smokes! Because it used to be that men were a little bit more sanguine about this, but crazy. And then the one that caught my eye is the woman that wore a dress and she had twice as much fabric on her headset from the dress than the rest of the dress itself. It was a green one. I don't know if you remember that one, David.
Yeah,
But my
I do.
final thought, I know we're having a little delay here, but can you believe that people pay $100,000 a ticket to attend that thing, and it's by
I just
invitation only?
I just read that the other day, and I thought when it came on my feeds last year, I thought it was 30,000. But yeah, I just read 100,000 just the other day.
Yeah, last year was 75,000. This year is 100,000.
It's insane. I mean, outside of obviously it's highly attended by celebrities, but if you're not a celebrity, who are the people going to this thing? Obviously millionaires, billionaires, but and Jeff Bezos's involvement this year.
Title sponsor, you know. And by the way, his wife, Lauren Sanchez, probably was the best dressed, most authentic, tasteful, not that taste matters. And people said, she dressed like a billionaire's wife. Yep, she sure did. you know,
Yep. Yeah, but like I said, the deeper point is I think it resembles where online culture and especially social media culture is these days. You're doing it solely for the clicks, for the views, for the shares, for that, and throwing all caution to the wind, which most people that go to that thing don't care. But I see that in the mortgage and real estate world with people doing just silly stuff on social media that just does not fit them. I'd mention a name because I saw this person just yesterday, a very, very high producer, somewhere between 200 and 300 million a year, just doing stuff that didn't fit. And that's the deeper point. What's McKenna saying here?
so we do.
100,000, 75,000 cow.
Yeah, David, you're right on all accounts. You know what's crazy too is nowadays some of these stars are bringing two, three, four, five outfits to the Academy Awards, to the Met
Hmm.
Gala, and it's just crazy. I read an article I think in Variety one time about the prep that like an actress does getting ready for say the Academy Awards. It's incredible what they go through to try to be there, up to and including they get copious amounts of Botox in their underarms and other places where they typically sweat, so they don't sweat. Like it's just
Mm.
nonstop what they do to try to pretend to be that person.
Yeah, I did see Simone Biles. There was a headline last week or the week before where she vowed to not go to any more red carpet things because she was like, it cost me $25,000, $30,000 to go to every single one of these shoes. I'm just not going to do it anymore.
Yeah, and it takes days and days. It's crazy. Even if you're getting,
Yeah.
and most of them they get their gowns for free, and they also get, a lot of these actresses, they might wear $40 million worth of diamonds that are on loan from the local jewelry store just so it gives them exposure. It's nuts.
Right. Right. Anyway, enough about the Met Gala. But yeah, I actually had I just posted it on Facebook, and I had a handful of people. No one disagreed with me. I had a handful of comments who were like, "Thank you for saying this. 100% agree," and so on and so forth.
So true.
But
So true.
yeah, the Met Gala is stupid. Anyway, let's talk about the Fed.
Let's talk about Fed, and like David, we'll just touch on this quickly. I love the quote. It was from Wolf Richter. It was, "How many cuts does the Fed need to make?" And he's referring to short-term interest rates before they drive the 30-year federal bond rate above 7. Now, as we know, the mortgage rates would then be higher, but it's counterintuitive, but it's true. The Fed, what we know is employment. We're going to talk about employment in a little bit, but employment is stable. We're mostly at full employment, right? The economy is still chugging along. GDP was over 2% last quarter, and inflation is radically picking up. Outside of the fuel increase, outside of Iran conflict, inflation has been picking up for 3 quarters. And if the Fed doesn't fight inflation, they won't be able to control the long end of the curve. And if they irresponsibly cut on the short end, we're going to see the long end rapidly increase. And it's just something that all mortgage professionals should be aware of. We really have to be wary of the Fed cutting rates right now because it will drive the long-term rates up. And that's really all there is to it. But it's counterintuitive, but we should pay attention to it. David, your thoughts?
I'm confused because I know that every time the Fed makes a cut, loan officers typically pose to like it doesn't mean they're cutting mortgage rates and so on and so forth. But the two usually trend together, even though the Fed cuts doesn't directly affect it. But I thought the two trended together. As the Fed rate goes down, eventually the mortgage rates go down. But you're saying the opposite? I'm confused.
Well, I want to worry about the Fed rate compared to 30-year fixed mortgages. Instead, compare the short end of the curve, a 3-month T bills, 6-month T bills, 1-year T bills, compared to the long end of the curve, 10-year Treasury, 30-year Treasuries. And here's what happens, David. If the Fed cuts the front end, that's what they can control, the front end, the overnight cost of funds. That's as short as you get, right? They control the short end. As they lower the short end, they're juicing the economy. What they're doing is they're injecting money into the economy. Now, let's say you have $1 million you want to invest. And you go, gosh, I want to invest in 30-year bonds. And so let's say the 30-year bond is yielding 4.5% interest rate or whatever it happens to be, right? But if it's a 30-year bond, right, inflation erodes your investment. So the higher inflation goes, the less your investment's worth, and it can actually invert to where your real dollar is worth less by the time
Mm.
you get the end of the 30-year. And so regardless of what the Fed does on the short term, if it's inflationary, the long term is going to demand more of a yield, if that makes sense. So it's not comparing what's the Fed overnight cost of funds rate impact on 30-year fixed rates. It's what's the short term manipulation do to the long term appetite of bond buyers. And if you look at it that way, then it makes total sense. If the Fed is inflationary in the front, then in the back, they're going to want more yield to protect them from the interest rate risk of inflation. Does that make sense? And we're not trying to be economists here. Um,
If you tell me it makes sense, then yes, it makes sense. If there's one person that should not be ahead of capital markets, it's me. Have you ever been like ahead of capital markets or anything like that?
Not at all. Nobody
No.
would give me that. Nobody's going to give me the print money, button.
I was gonna say, do you think
No.
I think you have the chops to be one.
Well, thank you. That's nice of you. No, no, nope, I haven't. And nobody's approached me, and I don't think it's going to happen in my career. But thank you, David. If we start a mortgage company, then you can hire me to be your capital markets guy. But it's
I,
counterintuitive, and everybody should know about how rates are formed.
yeah, I've known a few couple or a few head of capital markets, more so than just saying hi in the hallway, but they're a different breed. One of my favorites was Greg Richardson. Worked with him at Movement, and love the guy to death, but he's definitely a different breed.
It's a mix of gunslinger and economist, or I should say, gunslinger and wannabe economist.
Right, right, right. You want to move on to AI?
I sure do.
Let's do it. We picked up some time on that one. We picked up
Yeah,
three minutes.
we're gonna pick up some more time, and you know what? We this isn't really a story of AI. And first, I want to say, gosh, it's really good to see Sue join the leadership at Housing Wire. She is fantastic. I am a huge fan, so it's good. It's good to see her. That's the first thing, The second, and when I say Sue, I'm talking about Sue Woodward. I think she's been a consultant to Housing Wire, but now she has an official position, and so this is her second, I think, article that she's drafted for them and their current insights. The title of the article is "AI, the Goat of Your New Mortgage Dream Team." And she really talks about the strategy of how mortgage companies can step into AI. And to that end, I think we have, and she had a ton of really good data in this article. To that end, let's look at the first chart because you might find it surprising. And here's what this chart says. This was a survey by Stratmore, or by Realtor.com, I should say, asking home buyers, what are your most useful tools? What are your most useful resources? And in this recent survey, AI came in a very close second to real estate agents and well above your friends and family. So AI is really taking a superior position of influence now, and that's super important. Dave, before we go on, what do you think about that?
About this entire chart,
Yeah, yeah. How does it strike
the,
you?
the one that sticks out to me is television, and I'm wondering if that means people watching HGTV and that kind of thing and getting their education or so-called education from HGTV and the like. But that scares me. The 55%, it's as high as 55% from television. That's scary.
Yeah, and you know what? You're 100% correct. It is from things like HGTV, and that is where they're getting their education. But so it's interesting where influence is. And then David, there's more interesting data. Sue probably had 10 great charts. We don't have time to go through all 10. We just picked two or three. The next chart is really speaking to, gosh, what influenced you the most, or no, where did you start your search and when going to buy a home? And you can see here the leading one is of course search online, but the second part, the black dot, is what actually did the consumer like the most through, and they did that through NPS scores. That's what the black dot is. And
Mm.
so consumers were really happy about the information they got online. They were the least happy about information they got from their existing servicer, which is kind of interesting. And then, of course, you can see the different buckets of influence. The lowest was mortgage. A lender was very low. Third to lowest, very little. David, anything strike you on this chart?
Yeah, the fact that 5% actually were expecting something out of the mortgage servicer.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, you got to remember, a lot of servicers have real estate, platforms, and so they're directing
Okay.
them back to the real estate platform.
Okay.
Whether
That
like
makes a
think
little bit more
Zillow.
sense.
Yeah, yeah. No, think Rocket. Think with Mr. Cooper. Now think Two Harbors, or think of Rhythm. They all have mortgage and real estate platforms, and so they're cycling it back to it. But that's it. But let's get to the next, because I think it's more interesting. She kind of takes she takes a shift here, because she's not only really talking about AI, she's really talking about the kind of the future. And David, there's a uncorrelated correlation that I'm going to bring up in just a second. And this is fascinating. This speaks to market share, and it's market share of the top 20% of loan officers versus the bottom 80. And this is the first time I've seen this data. And the thing is, it's what we've been intuitively saying for years, like we've been feeling it. And the way I've expressed it, David, is Pareto's principle has been compressing, meaning I think it's been going from 80-20 as it migrates to 90-10. So I'm surprised to see this data that it's really only 25, 75. But the thing you got to really pay attention to, this is where you need to become, to pay attention to trend analysis, because through the years 2022, 2023, and 2024, the top 20% gained 1% market share. But between 2024 and 2025, they gained 2.5% market share, or it went up 200. The trend accelerated 250%, and I think that acceleration is going to continue this year, next year, the year after, and we're no longer slowly marching towards a 90% consolidation in the top 20. We are now sprinting towards it, and it's interesting. And what's the implication of that? But David, how does these numbers strike you?
So one thing you said just opened my eyes a little bit. I think since 2022, every CEO out there that I've seen on social media has been preaching this, in the fact that if you've made it through, 22, 23, 24, it's gonna clean out the entire system, the entire world of loan officers, and get rid of the garbage. And so it was actually a little bit shocking to me at first when I saw that there hasn't been a wider spread from 71, almost 72 to 75. I thought it would be more, but I didn't realize that there was only a 1% increment between the first 3 years to the last. To just last year. And so it's going to be interesting to see if it goes back to that 1%, or if it keeps on going at that 2, 3, 4%. Because I think that's what everyone's been expecting. And that's what most CEOs have been, or most C-level salespeople have been saying.
You know what, David, you brought up a really good point, and that is, if let's say the bottom 40% of loan officers have washed out, and let's just say those are all the loan officers doing 0 to 1 loan a year, right? Well, if those wash out, you would think that that would consolidate the number across the entire band, right?
Right.
Because now you don't have that dead 30% going into the denominator. And so you would think the 80% would actually gain market share relative to the top 20%. But mathematically, that's what you think that would happen. But it's just that the best of the best are getting better faster, and they're really just adopting the tools faster, embracing change faster, getting in line with which way the current's going. And it's really fascinating to watch, and we're going to keep seeing some more developments on this. But very interesting.
Yep. I think we had one more slide on that one. No?
I
Yes.
think that's it. I think we got enough of that topic. It's a great topic. Go check out that article. I don't know if we can put a link to it, McKenna, but that's a great article. Sue Woodward, good work. Good to see you more publicly facing. Not that you weren't in your previous assignment, but great to see you.
Sorry, Ron, but it's Woodard.
Woodard. What would I say?
Woodward.
Woodward. Yeah. Sorry. Woodard.
You said it the first time. I was going to let it go. I didn't want to call
Woodard.
you out, but
No,
instead
no.
of continuing to say it, it's Woodard.
I'm a Sue. By the way, I'm a Sue fanboy. Back when she was, one of Todd Duncan's darlings. She ran in the Todd Duncan group with Barry Abib, and quite a few other Jim McMahon, and she spoke all the time. And I used to listen to her tapes and try to emulate her. So, I'm dating myself, but I'm a big fan of Sue's.
Yeah. All right. Next one, employment reality.
I love this. Let's just put it in the bucket. Two things can be true at the same time. There's so much about this. Here's a couple facts. I think we can just go to the first slide, and this will be a really good explanation of this. This slide's not going to help you, but I'm going to explain to you. Here's the thing. We are at the lowest jobless rate in decades, meaning we've had the fewest jobless claims, in like 40 years. It's a record low. So jobless claims are low. And so here's a fact. We are nearly at full employment, right? But that's not what you're hearing in the headlines. You're not hearing that at all. You're hearing that we're only creating 30,000 jobs a month or 50,000 jobs a month. And oh my, the sky is falling. But the truth is we're at full employment, and we have the fewest people doing new jobless claims. But two things can be true at the same time. We could be at full employment while not adding new jobs. They're not mutually exclusive. What's happening is the labor force has been shrinking. We have a net migration of a negative 3.5 million people. That's shrinking the labor force. If you're shrinking the labor force, you're shrinking the population, then you're obviously not creating new jobs. No kidding, right? But the fact is, companies aren't letting go people. And here's the thing. Usually, here's what happens. You want excess of jobs because that drives. Well, let me argue with it. If you have a lot of job openings, it actually drives competition for for employees, and that drives up wages, which also drives up inflation. But that's healthy in that then employees get pretty good pay increases. When there are not a lot of new jobs, usually wages go stagnant because there's not competition for employees. But what's happening right now is wages are still rising faster than inflation. We're having pretty good wage growth right now, even though there aren't a lot of new job openings. And we're having a lot of retention. People just aren't moving right now, and it's very interesting. And the reason why I got to understand this, two things. If you just follow the headlines, you think, gosh, what a horrible economy. Only created 30,000 jobs. Well, creating 30,000 jobs when the labor force is shrinking is dang good, right? But the second thing is, if you go, no, look, everybody that wants a job pretty much has a job. Congratulations, everybody. That's great. And you can't let the vibe overrun reality and paralyzing our clients and stopping them from making really, really good decisions about home ownership and about building wealth for the future. And that's kind of the main point that I would just keep harping on, David. What else do you get from this, David?
I wonder if the headlines that we see uh, are a result of the lack of jobs, or just not the jobs that people want, right? Because there's plenty of jobs out there, especially manual labor jobs and industrial jobs and so on, but those aren't the jobs that people want. So I wonder if those fake news headlines are the result of it's just not the jobs that people are looking for. They want a 9 to 5 safe job in front of a computer in a air conditioned building. But I just saw a post just earlier today, just highlighting electricians, like commercial electricians are being paid $150,000, where coders are being are exiting stage left, left and right. And it's just not the jobs that people are wanting. And I'm wondering how much of that is a factor here.
Yeah, David, you're 100% correct, and you could also make the point of how many people are considered employed, but how many are underemployed. Or to your point, they actually follow underemployed or people not employed in the job classification they want. And there's all that, David, and there's plenty of noise in the number. But there's another thing that's happening that's growing really fast. Is in today's environment, anybody can be self-employed and actually make a really good living in the gig economy, in the way that AI is. And so we're having the fastest growth of self-employed businesses being born that we've had in a very long time, right? And it's not just that these companies are being born and people are going self-employed and they're going to this new economy, but they're actually making a lot of money, which isn't what normally happens when people become self-employed right away. But people are going into, I mean, what the heck? We just had the first single person company be a green shoot, meaning the first one person company created $1 billion company in less than 1 year. Holy smokes, right? And so there's never been more opportunity on that side. And we're actually having a hard time measuring that type of growth. That it's harder to measure self-employed people or gig, because a lot of times they get counted as unemployed and the numbers don't fit quite right. So there's a lot of stuff going on. But the key point here is, David, it's not as bad as the headlines say, and it's actually pretty dang good, and that's the part that we have to pull away. And somehow we have to communicate that to our clients over the headlines so they can make good decisions.
I hadn't heard the one person $1 billion company. Are you saying that it started with one person and reached 1 billion valuation with just one person?
Nope, nope. It was a one-person company. They created a bunch of AI agents as their employees. So he created like a few dozen AI agents acting as his team, right? And it was completely technology ran. He created $1 billion company.
All by himself. And at the point that it became $1 billion company, it was still just him.
Yes,
Wow.
yes. They had been predicting it. Peter Diamandis had been predicting this for a year, and it finally happened. And it's just the first of many. It's crazy.
Wow. Insane.
David, on that
All right.
point,
You
by the
want,
way, I know on that point on a total tangent. Remember 3 months ago, I told you Mac Minis, not only is there going to be a shortage, but the price of them is going to go skyrocket. Well, now
mhm.
they're out of them. They're completely out of them. Whenever they get them, you might find some in some hardware store in Idaho in a box with dust on them because nobody buys them. But now they're on huge back order. They're going to go the minis are going to go from $599 to $799. I'm guessing by the time they actually get enough of them, it might be $1,200. There's going to be a massive short of them because Mac Minis are the employee of the future, and you just can't get enough of them today. You know,
well, between your house and my house, we have about 5 of them. So maybe we should put them to better use. We'll buy McKenna a MacBook and put her Mac Mini and Kelly's Mac Mini, and I bought 3 for you for your studios and so on. So maybe we should put them to better use and start having them work for us in a different way.
Yeah, we need to learn how to turn the Mac Mini into a full blown employee, and then maybe we can make a $1 million company.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
All right. Rapid fire, moving on from main topics to rapid fire, where we try to hit 3 minutes each. First one, we're talking about abundance.
Yeah, this is just going to be a straight out fun topic, David, because we're going to talk about the most expensive listing in the United States history, and it's a $400 million listing in Bel Air, and it's just straight out crazy. Now, it's rumored to be owned by the royal family, the Saudi Arabia royal family. I don't know if that's confirmed or not, but here's just a couple things on this, and then David, we start kicking around, and McKenna, I expect you to join us on this conversation. But if we're going to sell $400 million, I think with 25% down, the monthly payment is $2.5 million. $2.5 million a month is the monthly payment. The monthly tax bill is $333,000. That's just startling to me. Now, this is a 70,000 square foot house. It has 59 bathrooms and 39 bedrooms. Of the 39 bedrooms, only 18 are for family and guests. 21 of them are for employees, and servants. It's just insane. It has a few elevators, as you'd expect. The guest house is huge. The other thing, David, it has a commercial grade kitchen that would equal any, large hotel in the United States. McKenna, David, what do you guys think? Did you go look at the 56 photos of this dang monster?
I went onto Zillow, and I don't know if I saw all 56, but I saw, if not all, then most. And I think so. That I'm originally from the UK. Became a citizen, I think, back in 2004. And so if my mom's watching, or if any of my family are watching, I apologize for what I'm about to say. But this is proof that I just think that royal families just shouldn't exist in today's world, because that is just ridiculous.
Well, I would add, before McKenna, you jump in and look into photos. Whoever designed that has horrible taste. I don't know what the vibe is. Is it
inside or out or both?
Inside. Inside. It's like backwards, Egyptian or something. I have no idea. It made no, like, there was no theme. There's weird stuff. McKenna, what do you think?
I don't know. It just makes me think that I need to start making more money. I want a big house like that. Not actually.
Go marry a prince.
No, don't marry a prince. Let's get your MacBook or let's get your mini MacBook.
Just got to start selling some minis.
Not selling them, deploying them.
Turn them into employees.
We're in a. I get we're in a K-shaped economy where the top is doing unbelievable. If you have assets, this is the best time ever. And on the bottom, if you're just strictly, by wages, you're having a much tougher time. But there is so much abundance around us. There's so much wealth. There's $40 trillion of wealth floating around that's, not tied to any type of obligation. It's just unbelievable. And we got to have more of a mindset of abundance. And I think that's one of the things, if you see the loan officers and real estate agents, that top 20%, they 100%, they have a mindset of abundance as well as gratitude. And they're out there attacking the market, versus the bottom 20%. It's like dread, and this is horrible, and it's the worst of times. And that's what they're experiencing, but it's a fascinating time right now in the market.
All right, rapid fire number 2, dynamic pricing.
We have all these rapid fires are great, and this came from a Sherwood News article, and the article is about how the state of Maryland just outlawed dynamic pricing on grocery stores. And you may or may not be aware that grocery stores are slowly going to digital price tags, and they're doing it so that they can change prices easily, change prices through the day. Walmart is going to this; they've deployed it in I thought something like 20% of their stores. Walmart says they're not going to use dynamic pricing, but the idea is that maybe you sell a pound of hamburger for $4 at 10 a.m. because the consumer isn't urgently trying to buy it. But on their way home from work to go cook dinner at 5 p.m., that pound of hamburger is now $6. That's what dynamic pricing is. It's not only what the cost of your goods is, but it's also trying to judge how strong your consumer's desire is, how much they're willing to pay. Now we do dynamic pricing with Uber. We do it for airlines. You actually do it now for movie theaters. You do it for concerts and sporting events. I can keep going on and on. And what's interesting is that consumers are okay with dynamic pricing when they think it's fair. Like it makes sense if I walk up to the ticket counter and I asked for a ticket, an airline ticket that day, we're going to go, okay, you know what? It's all right. I'm going to pay more. I'm used to that versus if I would have bought it a month ago. But we're not okay if the grocery store thinks, oh my gosh, I need this hamburger to cook dinner tonight. I'm going to charge you more. Now, we're dynamic pricing. Dave, we talked about dynamic pricing 2 weeks ago. We talked about a relationship to Uber. Uber was charging you different. It was rumored Uber was charging different prices depending on who you were, what your socioeconomic status was, and how badly you needed the car. Now, what happens when consumer thinks that you're unfairly pricing them or you're using information that should be private, you shouldn't have, then they get super offended. But what this chart here is showing is that more and more companies on their earnings call are talking about how dynamic pricing is starting to drive profits. So it's gaining momentum throughout American companies. But the next chart shows, gosh, this is what consumers are okay with, and this is what they're not okay with as it relates to dynamic pricing. And we don't have to get in the weeds on this. Just know consumers think some is okay and some isn't okay, and there's a line in the sand. But David, the part that's more interesting to me, and I'll also get your perspective on this, but the part that's more interesting to me is mortgages have been a leading industry of dynamic pricing for a very long time. And it's key to what we do. But what are your thoughts on this topic in general?
The first thing I think about when you say dynamic pricing is Uber, and that makes sense to me. You go to a concert and it lets out, and there's 30,000 people or whatever number, and there's only so many Ubers. That makes sense to me. But I just saw a post 2 hours ago on Facebook. It was about Walmart digital price tags, where one person experienced picking up a candy bar, and it was $1.15, and by the time they got to the cash register, it was $3. That doesn't
Wow.
make sense to me. And sure, is there supply and demand on candy bars? Sure, to some degree. I don't know, maybe not. But for me, it makes sense for like an Uber, but other things it doesn't. But I also think about, just could you just interchange the term dynamic pricing to price gouging? And I think a lot of people would say yes.
Yeah, David, I would agree with you. Some dynamic pricing is opportunistic and price gouging. An example of that is, fires in LA burn down every home. You have the last home standing, you're going to sell it. Well, you're not going to dynamically price it. You're going to sell for 1 million, but now you're selling it for 10 million because everybody needs a house.
Right.
Now, and that's pure price gouging, but it's also market dynamics. I will say one difference in why dynamic pricing is positive, because the example you use with concerts, not only is there a supply and demand, meaning there's a shortage, but what the dynamic pricing then does is it attracts more participants to come and be suppliers. So, like, I'm not going to be an Uber driver if I'm going to get paid $20 a ride. But if you
Okay.
increase how much you're going to pay me, you attract more drivers, and that helps solve the supply and demand problem, right?
That's a great
But
way to look at it.
in circumstances where you're not trying to solve that problem, right? Then it starts to be price gouging, right? Then you're just opportunistic. Hey, I only got one candy bar left. I'm gonna just sell for the highest I can get it because some sucker is gonna pay for it. Now we look at dynamic pricing in the mortgage industry. Which do we do? So in 2020, we got way over our skis with volume over capacity, and our biggest lever to slow down the volume was to raise prices. And so companies might have been running at 100 basis points margin, net margin, and they raised it to 5, 6, 700 basis points. But that was our control for velocity. Now that's dynamic pricing. Was it price gouging? Probably not. Probably not, right? I wouldn't probably say so. And was it more a reaction to not only were they trying to control the customer's experience and the flow, but the higher margins brought more people into the market, which helped solve the supply and demand problem.
Question I have for you: when when I was working for mortgage companies, I wasn't paying attention on a daily or monthly basis of how many basis points the company was making. But when it went from 100 to 500 or whatever the numbers were, um, was any of that passed on to the loan officer, the salesperson, or did that just go straight to company profit?
Yeah, that's a really good question, David. And by the way, I'll tell you, like during the 2020, 2021, all those time, your margin was set not by how much you thought the consumer could withstand. It was 100% set on controlling your volume. That was
Right.
so what like in the companies I work for, it was never like, oh gee, we can make more money. It was like, oh gee, how much harder do we have to step on the brake? And that's what controlled the margin. Now, the easy answer is no, the extra margin wasn't shared with the loan officer, but that's totally false. The fact is, loan officer comp went up about 20% during that time period, right? That's when we started to see, a lot of 140 basis points, 150 basis points, 200 basis points comp plan. We never would have seen that, before. And you don't really see it today with tight margins. You don't see it. And so not only did comp plans go up, but also, the cost of the whole sales assistant line exploded from 5 basis points to 30 basis points. Marketing, everything. So why it didn't necessarily say, gosh, we're going to split the pie 50-50, but the loan officer cost crept up incredibly during that time. And so I would say yes. And by the way, companies, including companies we work for, they had profit share based on their profits. And so through the
Yeah.
profit share system, the answer is yes.
Yeah. Yeah. What month and year was it when shit hit the fan? Was it late 2021 or early 2022?
Mid 2020s.
No, I mean when rates started to go up and volume fell.
Oh, when rates. Oh, so I got just mistracking which shit and which fan.
Right. Right.
No, rates started to start to go up 2023. The Fed started to
It's
hit the
23.
started to increase rates 2023.
Yeah, I didn't really have an exact reference. I thought it was earlier than that. Guess not.
No, they were going lateral for about a year, but once inflation hit 8% or whatever it is, that's when they said, we're in trouble.
Right.
And that's when they started raising rates. But
All
anyway,
right.
so
Well,
that's
speaking of shit hitting the fan, you want to talk about dumbasses?
well, that's an interesting transition. But segue. Yeah, let's do it. I don't know how you got the bathroom, but all right. So this is interesting, David. We hesitated putting this on our topic list because it's been covered, as McKenna will show you in the next slide. It's been covered all over the place. Super popular influencers have talked about this topic. If you haven't been exposed to the topic, let me just give you a quick overview. You have a choice of hitting a blue button. You get a vote. You either hit a blue button or a red button. If the group that votes, if more than 50%, so 1 plus 50%, hit the blue button, everybody in that survey gets to live.
No,
However,
everyone gets to live, right?
blue is everyone gets to live. However, if you hit the red button, however, if less than 50% of people vote for the blue button, then only the people that hit the red button get to live, right? So blue button is altruistic. I hit it, we all live. Red button, I don't care about anybody. I'm going to hit it. I'm going to make sure I live. That's kind of like the argument. So the poll is, which would you hit? Knowing that, which would you hit? Would you be the altruistic person saying, I want us all to live, kumbaya, peace on earth? Or would you be the person in red saying, hey, my job is to take care of myself. I hit the red, I live, right? That's how the that's how the argument frames. Now, I will give away a little bit of the pros and cons. The people who hit the red go, look, dumbasses, if you all just hit red, we all live. You idiot. Everybody hits red, everybody lives. Like there's no risk. The people hitting blue are the ones that are risking everything. You're the dumbasses, right? And so now, and McKenna, I know you're going to join us for this topic. David, McKenna, you can share your thoughts on this interesting exercise. But moreover, which button would you hit?
So I was surprised when you sent over the topics that I had not seen this in the headlines. So today was the first, or today or yesterday was the first time seeing it, and I didn't really fully grasp it until about 2 hours ago. And if you've seen this question, drop a comment, whether you're on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, wherever, if you'd hit the red button or the blue button. But my first reaction, Ron, um, McKenna, go back a little bit before we go too deep into this. Yeah. My first reaction was like, well, blue button, everyone gets to live, right? That was my initial reaction. Everyone gets to live. But you're exactly right. If every single person hits the red button, then um, mathematically, everyone gets to live. So you've got the same outcome regardless of blue or red button. Blue, everyone gets to live. Red, everyone gets to live. But only if everyone on the red side hits the red button. So after having some time to digest it, I also saw this on Reddit, that it's a tool used to weed out psychopaths in the country, or sociopaths, I should say. That if you're a red button pusher, then you're a sociopath. But I don't know. Maybe I'm a sociopath because mathematically, red wins. Because if everyone hits red, then everyone lives.
McKenna, what's your thought?
The first time that I heard it was yesterday, before I even knew that this was a topic. And I hesitated at first because my thought process is, well, there's gonna be a bunch of selfish assholes that are gonna press the red button. And that's just kind of the way that the world works. And statistically, I mean, I don't have any statistics on this, but in my head, I'm like, most people, I would say, are looking out for themselves. So does that mean that I need to look out for myself as well? But then I'm like, maybe I should have a little bit more faith in humanity and try and push the blue button and try and see if more people can live. And so I think I would push the blue button in just my naivete and hoping that people are good people. And you know what? If I die, I die. It's over. I'm good. I don't have to do anything anymore.
Interesting.
What are you, Ron? Red or blue?
Well,
and your rationale behind it.
I'm kind of both of you guys in that my first response, when I first read this, my first blush is I'm hitting the blue button. And then as I read, look, you idiot, if we all I'm hitting the blue button, but look, you idiot, if we all hit the red button, we all live, there's no risk. I'm like, well, that makes sense. But then I was like, I don't care. I still want to hit the blue button. I'm with McKenna. I still want to be altruistic and be idealistic, and I don't want to be the one that leads us to being such a jaded and cynical, society, even though I know it's the wrong choice mathematically.
Also, if I push the red button and more people push the red button, I would not be able to live with myself, knowing that I contributed to that.
That you killed the blue people?
Yep.
That's the part that the people don't. That's the one thing that argument doesn't make from the red, is that their choice could kill people.
Uh-huh.
That's that they don't, even though it makes complete sense, but they don't factor that into their choice.
I think also because it's a hypothetical question and that it's not actually happening. So they're like, oh, yeah, I'm going to push the blue because they're not actually killing anybody. Or, sorry, the red. But they're not actually going to kill anybody. But
it's maybe a hypothetical right now, but wait till your Mac Mini takes over the world.
I'm starting to kind of think that the longer I sit here and listen to you two talk, that I might be a sociopath, because one of my
I've known
early
this.
Yeah, early on in the days of the Walking Dead TV show, it got crappy as it went on, but early on in the days, and there's a bunch of zombie show fanatics out there, and they're like, "Bring it on, Armageddon! Bring it on, zombies!" And they want to live in that world. I'm a little bit of the douchebaggery that kind of wants to live in that world and survive on my own. So I'm like, if we hit the red button and everything goes to shit, then so be it. We live in this new Armageddon survivalist mentality. Wow. I think
Wow.
the police might come for me, but might be knocking at my door sometime soon.
All these surveys have been pretty even, David. They've been like 55, 45, 52,
Yeah.
48. It's been pretty evenly split.
I mean, if we go back to this one, the majority is blue on both of these.
Yeah, which is
Yeah.
reassuring,
It is,
but not by a huge margin.
Not by a lot.
which is concerning.
Yeah, yeah. I agree, but I still get to live. I'm barely making the cut. You and me,
Yeah.
McKenna, and
Well,
we
hey,
can then feel superior to everybody else.
not just that, not do only we get to live, everybody else gets to live.
That's right.
We didn't kill anybody.
That's right. I want the rest of my fellow mankind's gratitude for the rest of my life.
All
Sorry,
right, this
unalive
sociopath
anybody.
says we move on to the next one. Do we want to do the last rapid fire or move on to the AI tip?
It's amazing how we caught up, David.
Have we caught up?
Yeah, we're
we're almost there. All right, let's do tough choices. Our last rapid fire.
We'll do this really quickly, and we're not gonna draw this out. Let's just go to the chart, please. So here's what's happening. It's very interesting. This was in either Wall Street Journal or Bloomberg article, I forget. But the title of the article was "Young, Healthy Employees Are Opting Out of Employer-Paid Health Plans in Order to Save $1,000 a month." And so what's happening is that this is an interesting thing, and Dave, we were talking about this. Young healthy people are critical to the health of the insurance, industry, because young healthy people pay premiums and they don't really need a lot of, health insurance. They don't have a lot of cost. So their premiums just go in to help pay for people that, we help to assist them, right? And if you don't have young healthy people in the insurance pool, the pool doesn't work. That's why with Obama's healthcare bill, you forced everyone into it. You're really forcing the healthy people that didn't need to be into it, because their premiums actually help pay for the cost of people that are actually getting services. And so it makes rational sense, although of course everybody needs to have catastrophic insurance, I think. But it makes sense. But that's not the part that I don't want to debate the financial reasonability of not having health insurance other than catastrophic. But what I wanted to point out is employees absolutely are clueless of how much their employers pay in their health costs. We see our monthly, our deductible going up, or our monthly health bill going up. Like we see, oh my gosh, it's $600 now. We think that's exorbitant. But what we fail to remember is our company is paying 80%. For most companies, like that chart showed, the company is paying almost all of it. And the company continues to pay more and more of the burden, not only in a whole dollar amount, but as a percentage amount. And we just are completely ignorant of that. And we're certainly not grateful for it. And we start to really get mad at I've noticed we get mad at our companies because, gosh, my portion of the health insurance is going up, and I'm mad, and I blame my company. But my company is equally mad at me because, the average, I think I read the average mortgage company pays $29,000 a year for their employees' benefits. $29,000 a year. $29,000, right? Which is why companies are so hardcore on low producers, or from any type of dead weight, because it really puts a lot of drag on their profitability. But David, McKenna, what do you guys think about that? McKenna, this is a topic you could, give us some thoughts on.
I don't have too many thoughts, but I when you sit in a position of senior leadership and you see the numbers that other employees don't, because employers aren't going to brag about how much they're paying percentage wise. That's just most good people aren't going to brag about we pay this much, this much, this much. And so I think companies get a bad rap for this company's health insurance is so much and it's the worst company, and that might be their biggest gripe with the company. Where I think, if you've never sat in a position of senior leadership and you understand margins and profitability and all of that, then wait until you sit in that position and see what they're facing. Because if a company is facing very low margins, and they're one of those reasons might be because they're paying so much, covering so much of the employee's insurance, but that employee doesn't see it. um that's the thing that sticks out to me. I've been in that position before, and I'm like, people just have a tendency to gripe, because they don't see the bigger picture. uh, those are my only thoughts, which I don't think brought much value.
I have a
McKenna, what's
question.
your thought?
I
Yeah.
first have a question because I've never had a job where I've had benefits. So, wink, wink to you too. But, but do
Trying
people
to send you
have?
a case of beer.
That's a pretty good benefit.
Yeah.
Health insurance would be nice though. No, but do people have the option to opt out of companies' health insurance? I think this is what the
Oh
topic
yeah.
was about, right? So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I 100% agree. People tend to complain and gripe and stuff like that. And if a company's health insurance is expensive and something that people realistically can't afford or can afford something better or cheaper, I should say, and they opt out of it, I mean, yes, it's different for margins and people with the big high up in the numbers, but also it makes more sense for the individual to be like, I can't pay for this. I'm going to opt out. I'm going to get something different. And I think if that works for them, then they should do that, and there shouldn't be an issue with that.
No, there's no
Yeah.
issue, but usually there's something different costs more.
Does it?
McKenna, to your point, a company, actually benefits when their employee doesn't take the benefits.
Yeah,
Because it's not like
huge.
an employee loses. Let's say I'm spending $30,000 on your health insurance and you opt out, so I don't have to spend the $30,000. You don't get the benefit of that $30,000. I do. I get to save it. Which is unfortunate. And then if you opt out, I believe today with the Affordable Health Bill, you still have to have insurance. You're not allowed to not have insurance. You have to then opt into the affordable health
No, that
program.
that got rescinded, Ron. I think
Oh,
like
there you go.
4, 5, 6 years ago. I don't. That got rescinded, I think.
Okay.
Correct me if I'm
Um,
wrong.
no, I'm willing to believe it. I'm not versed on that.
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
but the company, it's very weird. It's a very interesting thing. But my angle on this was, I just wish employees had more gratitude for what their companies are doing. And the average, David, to your point, the average employee doesn't understand how difficult dealing with employee benefits are. Typically, you're negotiating all that in Q3, so Q3, and then they roll out in
Yeah.
Q4, and that's like the worst time of the year, man. You're
Right.
half your time is taken up with trying to find the best recipe and wrestling with how much you can afford, and wrestling the impact will have on families that you're providing for. And employees aren't even aware that this is going on in the background.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. Alrighty. Should we get to our last one? Our AI tip of the week.
Yeah,
Let's do
it'll
it.
be quick.
Roll the bumper.
How about bump the
All right.
Wow,
We were talking about
that was like an
what
abbreviating.
was it?
All right, this
Talking
is really
about
interesting,
champ.
David. So when the AI tools came out, let's say ChatGPT, it really didn't integrate with third party tools, and so it wasn't as productive as could be. And let me give you an example. In the beginning, ChatGPT couldn't even read an Excel spreadsheet, and it certainly couldn't generate one. And so you could reason with it, and then it could give you like a text table that you could try to upload into an Excel and convert to a spreadsheet, but it was really clunky, and it wasn't until a few months ago that Chat became very proficient in both reading Excel and generating Excel documents. Well, Gemini has been way behind on this. And finally, on April 29th, they rolled out the ability now for Gemini to fully generate any, MS, Microsoft suite of products via embedded native to the Gemini environment, which means you can literally talk data into your Gemini and have it create spreadsheets, and then being able for it to reason and manipulate the spreadsheets, which is great. You can take PDFs of data, upload them into Gemini. It will read them and convert them into spreadsheets that send manipulable data, which is great. So it now does natively Word. It does PowerPoints. That's been another problem. Like, hey, help me with my PowerPoint. I only need to do a presentation. It could do the outline, but it can actually generate the actual document. And so you had to take the outline and then take it to a third party tool. So this is a huge productivity gain that all of us, there's some things that all users kind of have a base knowledge of. All of us now can generate those type of documents, which is a huge productivity gain. So that's why it's our tip of the day.
I tried to convert Ron from a Microsoft person to an Apple person, and I failed miserably. I'm not a Microsoft fan. I'm more of an Apple fan. I'm not a PC fan. I'm more of an Apple fan. So I failed miserably on that. However, that said, PowerPoint, Word, Excel, just Microsoft is still the dominating factor. And that's not, I don't see that changing anytime soon for professional software, office software, and so on. But I will say that as great as this tool is with AI and being able to generate PowerPoint documents and so on, and I'm going to leave Excel out of it because I'm not a finance guy. But when it comes to PowerPoint, I've tried to have AI generate a PowerPoint for me, and it's still nowhere near what a human can do. It's going to get there and probably going to get there pretty fast, but it's still not near where what a human can do with that. But it's getting there. So those are my thoughts.
Yeah, stay tuned. It's evolving quickly. And by the way, I mean, I know I hear the bumper music, we're running out of time, but even stuff like you dump your receipts in, every day you dump your receipts into it, and then, you have it do your expense report. You have it do your monthly budget. You can dump, I've been working on, David, trying to create a software, like in my spare time, for home budgeting, where it can track your bank account, just like say Rocket Money has. But you put all your inputs into it, and it completely gives you an output, a spreadsheet, can give you a budget, best practices, where you're screwing up, completely audit everything. I just love AI tools for this stuff, and it's great now that they integrate with Microsoft.
I agree. And when the answer is black and white, there's no doubt. But and I think this is where I side with McKenna on this, on the side of AI a little bit, not fully, but a little bit. But when there comes human discretion, human taste, human preferences, style, and so on, it's just not there yet. It will be soon. I don't doubt that. But anyway, this was fun.
Good job, David. Good job, McKenna. It's good to see you on camera.
All right, Ron, you are in Vancouver. Go catch some fish. Go shoot some bears. Go do whatever they do up there. Thanks for joining us. Hey, if you would subscribe to our YouTube channel, that's where we really are going to push stuff in the future. We've got some exciting things coming from Little Nessie. I've been saying that for a while, but Ron and I are doing our best to actually be thoughtful and mindful of the products that we're putting together right now, and we've been working on them for a while. But thanks for joining us. Let's end with one last cheers, Ron. Cheers to you. Have a great time in Canada.
Cheers to you guys. Thank you.
See you next week.